New expansion, new no-flight challenge. The rules. Ground travel only unless absolutely necessary. Class abilities are allowed. I'm going to do this on my druid, who will be using Feral Charge and Flap to help get around. Toys and items are allowed. This includes the Darkmoon Cannon, Goblin Gliders, and the Rocket Helmet. Transportation provided by NPCs is allowed. This includes quest-only flying mounts and flight paths. I also have 2 clauses where flying is allowed. Clause number 1, the Scouting Clause. I'm allowed to fly around and scout an area to help find potential routes. However, I'm not allowed to progress and must return to the ground where I first took off before I do so. And clause number 2, the Checkpoint Clause. Once I have proven that I can reach a place in a way that is repeatable even with toys, I am allowed to return to that place with flight. This is for situations which may require waiting for a long toy cooldown multiple times, so I can go do other stuff and then return. The goal is to complete the main leveling campaign and all 4 Sojourner achievements in each zone, basically going for Loremaster. Once I complete the Sojourner achievement for a zone, I am allowing myself to fly in that zone. Warning, spoilers! I am going to skim over the plot for the most part, but if you haven't played Midnight yet and actually care about the story, I suggest playing it first before watching this. My first challenge was one that many faced, the disconnect screen. Luckily, it resolved itself after about 10 minutes, and I was able to accept Liadrin's summons. The intro is forced ground only, so everyone is forced to run around. I meet up with Arator, who has just learned that Avenging Wrath is quite literal, as well as Alonso's Fallen Lothraxian. We're actually going to play a little game with Lothraxian throughout this video. Does Lothraxian ever use that mace he has in the official artwork? Currently, I see no mace in his hands. Turalyon is too busy pressing W and zigzagging like the good ret pally he is, so I need to help Loremaster and Arator rescue civilians. The questline involves me hopping on the back of a light-infused Dragonhawk, which as I said earlier is allowed because it's NPC provided for the quest. We meet back up with Turalyon, Lothraxian once again without a mace, and decide his order to fight in mid is dumb and stupid and go do objectives instead. Oh hey, it's Velen. Liadrin has me collect some weapons for her, which I quickly realize are the legendary weapons from the Kel'Thas fight from all the way back in Burning Crusade. Very neat callback. We then charge the forces of the Void. Lothraxian's still without a mace, but at least he has laser beams this time. We fight a kaiju, and then Zal shows up to troll us by summoning a bunch more, which forces us to retreat back to the Sunwell. And oh, look at that! Lothraxian actually has a weapon this time. Still not the mace though. One quick battle with the Void later, the Light Wielders manage to turn the Sunwell into a laser beam, and the intro is officially over. And now the real challenge begins. My, what an incredibly long bridge this is. The new Blood Knight mounts look sick though, really need to level my Blood Elf Pally at some point. As I approach Silvermoon, I learned that Blood Elves actually reproduce via mitosis. Rule 34 artists in shambles. Loremaster, love what you've done with the place. After a bit of conversations, Loremaster sends me out to explore the city. It's the usual tutorial on where the locations are for things like the bank, the flight master, the city portals, and the horde-only area. Horde-only area, you say? And there marks my first death of the expansion. I'm sure there'll be many more to follow. After checking in with the rest of the points of interest, I return to Loremaster, who sends me to Fairbreeze Village to deal with something called Light Bloom. As I leave the city, I turn around to admire the view. The art team really knocked it out of the park. While I am mostly an Alliance player, I did level a Blood Elf through Eversong and Ghostlands right before the expansion release to refresh my memory of the zones, before I saw their updated versions. It's almost hard to believe that this beautiful path used to be the Dead Scar. I actually discovered some notes on how the Dead Scar recovered. It was initially thought to be irreversible, but I guess the light being given off by the renewed Sunwell helped purify the lands and allowed them to regrow. I also found this ring on a table. You know, I'm pretty sure this is just stealing. After some more frolicking through the woodlands, I reach Fairbreeze Village, where Arator and Rowena are investigating the Light Bloom.
Light soothe those wounds, little friend. Light
By the goddess, will you shut up? I'm trying to read quest text. Despite there being a million other players in the vicinity, it wasn't too difficult completing the quests. With the advent of housing, it is rather amusing doing quests, and then the NPC is just like, here, have a jar. Before I continue questing, I have a look around and found this handy-dandy translocation orb that sent me to the higher levels. These are found throughout the zone and are very useful for getting my grounded self to the various floating platforms. Also, the Flight Master was up here. But anyways, continuing on, we come across some whack-ass light bloom wildlife and a big angry tree guy. Rowena be like, whoa, this is where the song was leading me. Also have this candelabra I found. Blah 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 investigating, blah 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 killing. Okay, I think this is where the part I start skipping some things. This is a video about not flying after all, not story, and Eversong's not particularly difficult to run around on, which isn't surprising since it's basically an upscaled version of a Burning Crusade zone that didn't allow flying in the first place. So TLDR, Orwena goes off to research the light bloom some more, and Arator and I head to Tranquillian to get information from Umbric. Man, this place used to be spooky. While I do miss the spooky, it's also really nice seeing this place is healed. Guys, I feel like this is a safety hazard. If you miss, you'll just hit that guy chasing butterflies over there. Also, I can't believe Blizz would let the Blood Elves use fishing bots like this. For shame. Wow, this zone is so pretty. Oops, looks like they need help. Yeah, so anyways, to the surprise of no one, it's cult time. Unfortunately for them, I am well versed in killing cultists and destroying large ominous crystals. Blizz, please give me the shiny rocks from my house. One cult purge later, and I'm off to Windrunner Spar, which unlike the rest of the zone is still fairly spoopy. I help set up the defenses and kill more Twilight spies before aiding Umbric with his ritual. Afterwards, I head to Deathholm, observing the open field where the dead Scar used to be along the way. Valera is there, which indicates the Delve tutorial quest is upon us. How do you do, fellow Void wielders? It is me, Xalatath. Somehow, they are able to see through my brilliantly foolproof disguise, and I'm forced to kill them. And then, I kill their boss. We contact Silvermoon about the cult, and learn that the light bloom is causing even more problems. Heading there, and yeah, this doesn't look good. After rescuing several people, I meet up with the various leaders at the nearby runestone. They send me east to investigate the possible reason why the light bloom suddenly went out of control, but before reaching the next area, I got a bit distracted trying to get this banner on top of the mountain. Unfortunately, I don't think it's possible to reach without the rocket helm, which I wasn't willing to use yet due to its long cooldown, so I decided to admire the view from a lower hill instead, before continuing on. Turns out, the Amani were causing problems. Loremaster wants them pushed out, but Arator thinks the Amani are here for some other reason than just killing elves. I head to the nearby Amani crypt to further investigate with Arator. The run is kinda long and filled with angry plant mobs, but it is rather pretty. In the crypt, we learn that the Amani are also having problems with Twilight cultists. Arator wants to talk with them, but in order to reach them, we have to complete several fairly easy puzzles. Oh, guess I'm a frog now. Oh, it's just a match the symbols game. While Arator is willing to talk, the trolls are clearly not, and we have to kill one. At the Amani Pass, Loremaster and the rest of the Blood Elves are not particularly in the mood for negotiations. Doesn't mean I won't try. Talks break down once more as Zul'Aman would rather ragebait Turalion. Arator steps in only to get whacked. Hello, daddy issues. Anyways, it's time to head back to Silvermoon and officially finish the first zone. And oh my goddess, Loremaster, that sundial is huge. Eversong was pretty easy to get around as I expected, but what's next? I have the choice of 3 different questing routes. I decided to check up on Arator first since I was starting to get really invested in his character, and I figured it would be a shorter questline than the rest.
Champion, we're going to save the Sunwell. More importantly, we're going to fix that broken young man.
Man, I love Foal. It's also really funny that the leader of the Church of Light is a zombie. He's basically a zombie pope. I need to meet Foal and Arator back at the Sunwell, and quickly realize I did not pick up the flight path earlier, so... Ooh, that's a big egg. Anyways, Arator is sounding rather depressed, even as click lines are sounding less enthusiastic than usual. But before we can fix his issues, we have to recharge the Sunwell's battery supply. Dang, Locke's leaving their portals everywhere. Velen here of the exposition. Also, in case anyone was wondering, the Sunwell does indeed damage you if you try to stand in it. One round of recharges later, good to see my boy back in action, and I'm ready to help Arator. I swear, these locked portals seem to keep multiplying. Well, I say I'm ready, but before doing anything else, I go hunt down the nearby Flight Master. Turns out I didn't have to go through such a roundabout path. There was a way up through the Sunwell's room. And while the well itself is dangerous, the giant laser beam apparently is not. Seriously, there's even more locked portals now. I pick up the next quest, which wants me to head over to the Eastern Plaguelands, which is not a midnight zone. In fact, pretty much this entire quest chain takes place in various old zones in the Eastern Kingdoms. I debated just letting myself fly for these ones, because they were old zones, but I felt that wasn't in the spirit of the challenge, so I just used the flight paths and ran. Once again, I'm largely going to skim over the story. Basically, I just sit on the Paladin's holy altar for a bit to assert dominance, and then we go collect old relics to help empower the Sunwell Channelers while giving Arator some life lessons about the light. I travel to Scarlet Monastery, where I am reminded about Blizz's new scaling system in old zones, which I find very annoying and seems pointless because the next part of the quest takes place in the dungeon instance anyways. Like, people have been asking Blizz for max level chromie time for ages, and now Blizz gives us pointless level scaling at inopportune times instead? Anyways, I meet up with Fall, who has just casually waltzed his zombie ass into the heart of the Anti-Zombie League like it's nothing, and we get about to murdering Scarlets and stealing their sacred artifacts. After we're done, Fall, the GOAT, gives me a portal back to the Sunwell. After empowering the channelers, Fall bequeaths me with a pony. Thanks man, love it. Next part of the quest chain wants me to go back to the old Eastern Kingdom zones. But this time, my new favorite character in all of Midnight has just realized what I'm trying to do with my holy ground-based pilgrimage and has decided to lighten my load with a portal to my next destination. Some more questing later, and by the goddess Fall, yet another teleportation? You spoil me. One thing you don't quite realize while questing in newer zones is the amount of sharding in place to make sure areas aren't completely flooded with other players. Preach, man! Preach! Questing, more questing. I wonder what the orcs think about all of this. They were just minding their own business when all of a sudden 2 million of Azeroth's greatest champions dropped from the sky and deleted them from the mortal plane. Well, whatever they think, I'm sure my BFF Pelagos will enjoy all the updates on my progress he's getting. Waiting for Lobbies to respawn in Ganklethorn Vale on a vanilla PvP server be like... Cutscene time. I love how they made this look like an old RTS game. I've played Warcraft 3 a few times, but I really should get around to playing Warcraft 1 and 2. Actually, before Midnight launched, I reread both the Warcraft 2 books, and this scene in the book really does kind of track of the whole light blindness subplot at Midnight despite the books being written in 2007. I've heard people say that the idea of light blindness is new, but I actually disagree on that. I think it's always been around, it just didn't get a proper name until now. Anyways, quest done, and I have been provided with yet another portal. Yay! Blizz really likes these click on the ingredients to forge the thing quests, don't they? Take up the shield, Terralion. Prop Pally is fun. Trust me, I mained it last expansion. Sure, they changed up all the specs a few months ago and I have no idea if it's actually still good, but there's always a shortage of tanks, and I kinda want DPS this season. Do it for your favorite giant chicken, please. Terralion decides he would like to stay as a cringe Ret Pally, so we take the shield to his magical bar called the Orcantina, where Arator chooses to take it up and fulfill his destiny, as Prot. Very good, Arator. Now if the Ret Discord decides to shut itself down again, it will be beneath your concern. And that's the Arator questline done. Not really a challenge for no flying, since it pretty much took place entirely in old zones that didn't require flying in the first place. Let's hope the newer zones pose more of a challenge. Next zone, Zul'Aman. Gotta go check up on how Liadrin is doing with the trolls. Unlike the Burning Crusade version of the zone, there's no flight path near Zul'Aman, so I have to fly to Tranquillion and run the rest of the way. When I get there, things seem to be getting heated, so Liadrin asks me to de-escalate. Hi. Go away, pretty please. This doesn't seem to work, but the Twilight Blade attacks and we get a working together against common enemy moment. Zul'Jan's sister, Zul'Jara, shows up, but she seems to be more pissed at her brother than us, so we're able to convince her to let us into Zul'Aman to help her with her Twilight Blade problem. Ooh, this place is looking nice. This area is basically just the Burning Crusade raid, updated, so not much to say. It's all ground accessible. I'm basically just getting the Amani's trust by killing cultists for them, helping evacuate civilians, and saving the Lightwood they've already collected so they can use it against all the Void entities. The Twilight boss, Mordoon, manages to escape, but I'm sure we'll kill him later. Zul'Jara takes us to her village, by which I mean she and Liadrin fly off and I have to run. Traveling in Zul'Aman isn't that bad. While there's plenty of verticality, there are also a lot of roads and bridges to follow. While current Zul'Aman is a shadow of its former glory, the ancient Amani must have been very good at building infrastructure. I reach the village, and Zul'Jara gives me the okay to go in without getting killed. I do wonder what her people think of bringing a blood elf and some random deer back to the village, though. Also, I know the mailbox is here for practical gameplay purposes, but sometimes I like to imagine that the entire universe's mail system is canonically run by a single organization, and somewhere there's some brave mailman who has to travel into hostile territory in order to deliver the mail. A meeting with a bunch of Amani leaders from various tribes reveals that the Amani are in more of a dire situation than we were aware of. The tribes are scattered, and they have lost the favor of the Loa. At least they have plenty of lynx to pet. Zul'Aman is eventually convinced to pursue the blessings of the Loa and become something called the Hashe. Our first stop is Alcazan's Reach. After gathering some offerings and lighting some incense for the Loa, I'm given the daunting task of actually getting to the top of the mountain. I was told in advance by some friends that this may be a problem. I start just by clambering around the immediate area, but get nowhere near high enough. I then decide to break out the scouting claws and circle the mountain in flight form in order to try and find a path. Interestingly, there is actually somewhat of a path on the backside of the mountain, but it is incomplete with many gaps. Still, it's a starting point, and I return to the ground and make my way over. The first gap is clearly impassable on foot, so I'm forced to bring out the Dark Moon Cannon. I actually nearly don't make it, and I'm worried that I will have to wait another 30 minutes to try again. But with some careful jumps and maneuvering, I'm able to scale up the ridge and make my way to the next portion of the path. The next gap is smaller, but my attempt at leaping across merely gives me my second death. And this is part of the reason what the checkpoint clause is for. I end up using my rocket helm to cross the second gap, although I nearly miss because for some reason I'm being too stubborn to use the goblin gliders. I was hoping that would be the end of it, but I found a third gap right after, and at this point I was out of tools. I did briefly look into my toy box for anything that could give me some height, and I'm sure there's at least something in there that would work. But at the time, I couldn't think of anything, so I just waited the full 25 minutes for the cannon cooldown and blasted my way across. Please ignore the fact that I'm level 90 in this clip. That is your brain playing tricks on you. Please see the nearest member of the Light's Vanguard for some anti-crazy pills. Anyways, the fourth and final gap is actually jumpable with Deer Form Leap, so nothing extra needed for that bit. While getting to the temple itself takes some final scrabbling and another leap boost, I'm finally able to make it to the top. Now that I'm finally at the top, it's time to fall to the bottom. You may hesitate, Liadrin, but I sure as hell don't. I keep forgetting that using the rocket helm toy actually puts a goofy helmet on your head. This is making the cutscene rather unserious. Now that we have the Eagle Loa's favor, it's time to actually descend. I have a long way to go, but I am very high up. I managed to make it over the basin. I come across some deep ravines. Now this is the kind of 3D-ness I can get behind. I love layered terrain like this. I reach the next village, where I learn that the Witherbark tribe keeps having their peeps kidnapped by the Vile Branch. We brave the mist, and I help free the captured Witherbark. We also find shrines like those we found earlier, and light them as before. Eventually, after a bunch of Vile Branch killing and shrine lighting, we stumble into Halazi's temple, where we learn that he's been hiding the Witherbark from the Vile Branch, and us helping him has pleased him most greatly. Next Loa, Jean Alai. Ooh, bridges. I love bridges. They allow for cool terrain that isn't a complete bitch to travel across. The Loa speaker for Jean Alai is the slightly insane spirit guide archetype, and I love him already. Good old classic purifying oneself of one's insecurities trope. Okay, Jean Alai reborn. Next. Man, Zul'Aman is like the worst raid leader. Anyways, bear time. The destination this time is just a short jog down the road from Amanazar village. Instead of a questline, it's just a dungeon. I don't have much to say here other than the NPCs are frustratingly stupid. Otherwise, cool dungeon. Returning to the village, we find out Zul'Aman has once again decided to Leroy Jenkins the Twilight Blade. Luckily for us, the Loa are now with us, and Zul'Aman rallies the remainder of the tribes to go to their aid.
Then let's see which of us feels that real more, elf.
Goddess, I hope they kiss. The final battle itself isn't too much of note, just running around killing things and helping out each of the Loa. In return, the Loa get rid of Mordune's void barrier, and we are finally able to kill him. Afterward, we return to the village and celebrate the return of the Loa and the first Hashe in generations. The campaign is basically over now, but there's one final thing to do. What's with midnight and extremely long and straight bridges? I mean, I'm not complaining. I said earlier that I like bridges, but this seems a bit excessive, you know? Zul'Aman is sulking, and look man, I know you're a bit of an idiot raid leader, but I do like you. So I beg of you to direct your moping towards adding a new Amani allied race rather than becoming a future raid boss, please. And with that, Zul'Aman is done. Next up, Harandar. I take the flight path to Fairbreeze village, where I meet up with Haldoran and Orwena, who have been investigating the light bloom. Orwena thinks it has something to do with her homeland, so she opens up some kind of route portal to bring us there. We meet up with some of the locals who are not too thrilled of us being here, and then stop to admire the view. It is quite spectacular, although I question Blizz's choice in the piss yellow skybox. A short jaunt down the path leads us to the nearby village, and yeah, they are not happy we are here. It seems the meeting of the elders are in order, and they give me a convenient flower bird to ride. Although, in my haste to progress the quest, I forgot to grab the flight path. Whoops. We meet the elders, and it's the age-old tale of elders being stuck in the past with a stick up their butt. We need to prove that the goddess, who they call Onhara, but is very obviously Azeroth, has indeed called upon us. It is kind of a shame Blizz has to write quests with the assumption that you're a new player, because it would have been really funny if I just showed up and flashed them the heart of Azeroth, and skipped a good chunk of the campaign that way. Anyways, this cave is neat. One thing I didn't really like about the War Within was that despite it being largely underground, it didn't really feel very cave-like. The zones are way too open. This Harandar cave hits just the right balance of closed in yet open, and it allows me to mount as well. I've always wanted some cave areas that let me mount up in them. Running to the next area, I admire the scenery, loving the verticality. Also look at the size of this lad. In the Den of Echoes we meet Hagar, who used to be Teldrassil's root warden. I kind of feel bad for her, but also like, she only lost her job and a bit of social ranking in that fire. The trial is basically just a vision quest history lesson of the Harandar. It tells a story of how they managed to hide from Freya and the other Titan constructs. But a part of me thinks it would have been really funny if Freya did actually know about them and just didn't interact with them because she thought they were shy and didn't want to scare them. The next portion of the quest takes us to a delve. Oh, by the way, if you want evidence that Elnara is Azeroth, Halduran just straight up says it here. Anyways, I actually had this weird bug occur where for some reason I had the option to play a movie that was only supposed to be available after I had done the delve, and it teleported me to the next area. But I still needed to do the delve to complete the quest, so, I don't think anyone is really going to mind if I just fly back to where I should have been because of a bug, right? One delve later? Okay, now I'm here when I'm actually supposed to be here. Apparently, this village is the peace village, where only peace is allowed. I wonder how long until people start going insane and killing each other. The answer was not even 10 minutes later. When putting several old yellers down later, we've cleaned up the place enough to start investigating, and we figure out that the Allendust acts as inoculation to the light bloom. I head back to the main hub. For some reason, I don't have the flight path, so I have to run. I'm not entirely sure if it's the case of just me missing it, or if it's locked behind a quest. It's quite the run back, although fairly easygoing. The zone has its vertical parts, but is otherwise fairly flat. At one point, I spot something interesting in the sky. I'm too far away to properly target it, but I immediately assume it's a Lani 3.0. I finally get back to town, and of course the elders aren't giving up the Allendust, so we gotta go get some ourselves. Oh, that's where the flight path is. To get the Allendust, we need help of somebody called the Shulka. Going by how Orwena talks about him, I have to assume he's like her ex or something. Whee! Apparently getting close to the Rift of Alm makes most Harandar go insane. After temporarily severing Orwena's tie to the goddess in order for her to come with us without her going bonkers, we go down to the rift and collect some small amounts of dust to help us take down some big sort of weird nightmare creature thing. While doing so, I try to take on this elite creature and maybe bit off a little more than I can chew. Help me! Help me! Okay, I actually managed to kill it on my own. We killed the manifestation and collect the Allendust we need. While leaving the rift, I decided to be adventurous instead of going up the nice easy path, find a path of my own. While on my way to Har Alnar, I spent way too much time trying to figure out how to get this treasure. I had found a treasure stuck under the train earlier and had used the interact keybind to obtain it. I was trying that here, but in the end I figured out there's actually a way to get inside this weird log thing. When I get to Har Alnar, I find the light bloom infection starting to set in, and the root warden, Ruya, is missing. I find a journal left by him, and he's blaming us surface dwellers for the light bloom. I mean, technically he's not wrong. The Allendust inoculation test works, so we give it to the other Harandar to help them fight back against the light bloom. With the root warden missing, everything has gone to shit, and by shit I mean piss. Piss yellow. I ride around on an NPC provided pedal wing and throw Allendust at things to help flush away the source of all the piss. Okay, I should really stop referring to the light as piss. It's just so yellow. With a lot of the light bloom cleared out with my aerial assault, it's time to go in and start looting and killing things. Sheer amount of yellow aside, I actually really like this area. All the ramps and platforms actually require me to think about where I'm going and how to get there. This is the kind of problem solving I love in my ground-only challenges. I return to the elders to tell them about what I've discovered and ask for their aid. They are still useless. We return to the surface to find Eversong looking a bit more yellow than I remember. After some initial culling, Halduran resorts to torching the place. This is treated as a last resort tragedy, but like, it's not like forests don't recover from fires all the time. It doesn't even take super long either. Look at how much forest there is now, considering the forest got torched during the Second War. That wasn't that long ago, at least on elf time. Doo-dee-doo, save the rangers. Doo-dee-doo, charge the runestones of fire. Once everything is set up, the magisters start the ritual and I defend. Ruia shows up, having gone bonkers. Unfortunately, the big tree thing is able to stop the ritual as it dies. The Lightboom Rotani nearly overwhelm us before Hagar and the rest of the non-cringe Haranir come to save the day. With the power of the Haranir and the Ondust, we root the Lightbloom and then confront Ruia, who bubble harps like a coward. We make our way back to Silvermoon, and the Harandar Campaign is finally over. Only one zone remains. Where is the quest to Voidstorm? Okay, so apparently you need to be level 86 to access Voidstorm, and having skipped every single side objective, I'm only partway through 85, which means I have to do at least some side quests. For the sake of video compartmentalization, I'm going to cover side quests in the Sojourner sections, but just know that I did a bunch to get myself to 86. That being said, there are at least some side quests that are considered campaign quests. In my notes, I refer to these as the city drama quests, and long story short, they showcase how the Light's Vanguard is getting along with the city folk and various wielders of dark magic. As you can imagine from the title I gave it, there is a lot of drama, and Lothraxion still doesn't have that mace. But here I am, returning to Lorthamar at 86 to continue the campaign. Sunwell seems to be losing power as waves of void are hitting the city. After meeting with the Light's Vanguard, I seek out Turalion. I take the translocation orb to a higher area, but find that he's on a nearby roof, which I'm unsure how to reach. I use another translocation orb to get myself as high as I can, and then Darkmoon Cannon and Goblin Glide across the gap to reach him in Lothraxion. Still no mace, I see. Things are getting desperate, so Turalion agrees to getting help from Magister Umbric, although Lothraxion seems to be against the idea. Since I was up here, I decided to explore a bit and flap my way down to a nearby rooftop, where I met a group of Void Elves, some of which were going to be joining me later on the mission. Returning to Lorthamar, he agrees to let Umbric help them, and gives them permission to enter Magister's Terrace to get an important item. Romath is not happy about this, and does everything in his power to stop his ex from getting the Cynosure. What can I say about this dungeon? It was cool seeing an updated version of the old Burning Crusade dungeon, but these NPCs are so slow. It felt like it took forever to complete. I head back to Silvermoon, where a task force of Void Elves, Arator, and Lothraxion are waiting for us to open the way. Lothraxion is still maceless. Voidstorm is very voidy, by which I mean purple. The Void Elves seem to be having a rough time, but mostly hold it together. I join Lothraxion and Arator to observe the Void Spire, and we happen to run into Illyria, who has been stuck here for some time. She tells us about something called a Dominar, who controls the Devouring Host under Xalatath. We make it our first target. This zone sure looks interesting, desolate, yet full of things that probably want to eat me. The creatures here have something called Shadowgraft on them that is used to control them. I collect some while slaying the forces of the Dominar. We manage to subdue the Dominar. He calls himself Decimus. Lothraxion hates him. I run back to the Void Elf camp. So far I haven't had much trouble getting around. This area is rather flat and sparse on mobs, and there is a convenient ramp on the other side of the valley. Back at camp, I attempt to interrogate Decimus. I give him the old 1-2 with the hooves, but he doesn't seem that impressed. Heading to the next area, it's all downhill, but the path is winding and filled with mobs. I just start flapping the rest of the way down. It will certainly be interesting if I have to run back up. Decimus tells us how Zal got control of King Saladbar and his Shadow Guard. The secret ingredient is manipulation.
Omos, it is the right of the victor to take from the defeated on this world and on every other.
Oh, so what you're saying is that the void is just purified essence of murder, hobo. Anyways, I raid the Ethereal Refinery, looking for information about Saladbar and Zal, and while listening to one of the recordings, a curious little ship lands beside me. So of course I had to hop on it to see if it was something I could actually ride, and ended up taking a pleasant trip from one Ethereal camp to another, then back again. The Ethereal controlling the thing didn't seem too keen on me, but they left me alone, so I left them alone. What a delightful little discovery. I take the final recording back to our little hideout, and we discover that Zal and the Ethereals have captured a Naru and are trying to corrupt it, which is not good. I stealth over to the area, and we find the Naru being corrupted by Saladbar. I kill the guards, gather the keystones, and set up some bombs at a nearby Nexus Spire thingy, and then meet up with the rest. Lothraxion is getting rather impatient, and I arrive just in time to stop him from smashing the controls of his non-existent mace. I take down the shields and we rush to the Naro's rescue, and oh my goddess, please guys heal me. There are 2 light wielders here, surely at least one of you can throw a bubble my way or something. Yeah, I should probably mention that while the zone is available at level 86, all the mobs here are minimum level 88, which makes it a bit harder for me to kill things and stay alive. Unfortunately, we are unsuccessful in stopping the Naro from going all voidy and have to fight it. The Naro hurts Arator, and Illyria goes full Maw mode and uses her JoJo stand to eliminate the fallen Naro. And oh man, I've been talking about plot way too much in what is supposed to be a video about ground travel, so let me sum up the rest of the story real quick. So anyways, Lothraxion gets rage baited hard enough to become a dungeon boss, and we need to stop him from accidentally blowing up Silvermoon. Dungeon is neat. There's giant glowing claw marks everywhere, indicating Lothraxion still hasn't equipped a mace though. Also, during the dungeon, I noticed his illusions have horns, and was wondering if his real self also had horns. Like, were they trying to symbolically indicate his fall back into sin? But his real self didn't have horns, which I was initially disappointed in, until his illusion phase started and I instantly understood the mechanic. I felt so big brain for that. Anyways, R.I.P. Lothraxion, he never used that mace in the promo art. I hope when you inevitably reform the Lightlands or wherever, you are more chill and finally get that mace. Decimus shuts off the Nexus pylon things, and Arator and Illyria have a cute Sun Maw moment. And then Turelion and the rest of the Light's Vanguard show up to help us assault the Void Spire. So like, are we gonna tell him we killed his best friend, or... And with that, the main leveling campaign is done. Time for all the Sojourner quests. Okay, so editing this video is taking me longer than anticipated. And yes, this is mostly because I've been procrastinating by actually playing the expansion. So I'm going to go through the Sojourner quests in a rather rapid-fire manner. Even if I skip over quests, I want to make it clear that I greatly enjoyed all of these side quests and heavily recommend checking them out yourself if you haven't already. First up, Eversong. As I mentioned earlier, the first portion of these quests were done prior to Voidstorm. First side quest I did was with this tailoring guy. It was very straightforward and no challenge. He and the Draenei would make a cute couple though. Second quest had me chasing this Hawkstrider hatchling around the city. Also very easy. Pretty sure this was just the new battle pet tutorial because the next quest wanted me to actually capture a real pet. Sure, why not? Sounds easy. Quick quest. Out and in, 5-minute adventure. Oh, you want me to deliver some crates? Yeah, okay, I guess I could do that while looking for the pet. Guys, gals, I ran across the entire zone delivering crates and I could not find a single pet. I thought that maybe my tracking was off, but no, it wasn't. The closest I got to finding one was having an icon pop up on my minimap for a couple seconds before instantly disappearing again. I actually didn't get to finish this quest until after Voidstorm because that's where I ended up finding a pet. The next quest had me chase around and clean up after a dog. It was pretty easy. Ooh, some sheet music. Oh no, I'm sad now. This next guy wants to deal with some pupils of his. This is where I discovered those translocation orbs that I used later on to actually get me to Voidstorm. The people quests themselves are just throwbacks to the original Blood Elf starting area. After that's done, I venture into Murder Row and start 2 different quest chains. One wants me to go to the harbor, and the other has me talk to this demon hunter. The demon hunter wants me to meet them in a high up place, and I don't know how to get there yet. I run into these 2 and remember them from Eastern Plague Lands way back in the Kata days. The questline is short and easy. I head to the harbor, where I meet this suspicious fellow. The quest actually sends me fairly high up, and I considered using this to reach the demon hunter, but I didn't know if I would have access to these teleportations after I'd done the quest chain, and the point of the checkpoint clause is that I could always reach the checkpoint place again if I wanted to, by the same means I reached it in the first place. However, while up here, I did notice a translocation orb on the floating building in the distance, meaning there was some other way up. I take a pause from this questline and go searching for the translocation orb linked to the one I saw. I eventually figure out that I can reach it by sneaking through the horde-only area. Oh hey, it's Thalisra. Was wondering where she was. Unfortunately, I can't go say hi without the guards attacking me, so I turn back and flap my way down to the demon hunter. While helping the demon hunter, I finally hit 86 and get hit by the first void wave, indicating the Voidstorm has become available. I quickly finish up both quest lines. By the way, in case you are wondering, the difference between slate and shale is that one is metamorphic and the other is sedimentary. Then head to Voidstorm. but you've seen that already. I am now 87, with the campaign done and only the Sojourner quest remaining. I down an inky black potion and head to the nearby Hawkstrider livery. Not much to say here, pretty straightforward quests. Next is his Ranger Apprentice fellow, who needs some help. The questline is also easy, although it has me travel around the zone a lot. It's actually kind of interesting seeing the day-to-day activities of the Forest Riders when they aren't fighting in a war, and how they're working to rebuild the ecosystem of the forest. You know what would really help them? Blood Elf Druids! Next quest I run into has me clearing out some wildlife and plants. Oh my, that's horrifying. Overall, easy quest. Hello, there seems to be a party here. Oh, you want me to fish? Yeah, I can do that. He ended up being really picky about his fish, but that wasn't actually the difficult part of the quest line. You see these butterflies? Notice how they're flying slightly above my jumping range? Yeah, out of all the quests in Eversong, I didn't expect this one to give me the most trouble. I even got on my fishing raft to try and snag the ones that darted low to the water. Get back here! In the end, the good old deer leap got me the last one. I head over to Fairbreeze Village, where I pick up 2 quests. At this point, I was getting tired of this inky black potion because I was starting to get all sleepy, so I did a quick tour of the Light Bloom area to see how it looked before clicking it off. Unfortunately, kinda disappointing. I was hoping these reed things would glow too. The 2 quests I picked up weren't difficult. One dealt with yet another cute yet troublesome dog, and the other with some smugglers and the Naga they were smuggling magic goods to. A bit farther down the coast, I found myself dealing with yet more Naga. While doing the quests, I found myself wondering why the Naga don't just make their base of operations underwater. I feel like that would be a lot easier for them to defend. Once the Naga are dealt with, I head even farther south and meet with this rather suspicious lady. She wants me to gather some interesting ingredients for her, and the other elves tell me to be cautious. On further inspection, it seems she's been dabbling in ye old necromancy. I head over to Windrunner Spire. After some clambering around, managed to reach her. Turns out she was doing necromancy, but like the good kind of necromancy. After that, I take the time to swim south to get an uncollected flight path marked on my map. I may have had a hand in that many years back. I collect the flight path and check my achievement progress. At this point, I'm only 1 quest away from completing Sojourner in Eversong, but I'm not really sure where the last quest is. It isn't listed on the map. After asking around, I found out that the last quest isn't available until level 90, so at this point, I head over to Zul'Aman. But with the magic of editing, I can just skip ahead and cut straight to the final Eversong quest. The final quest is Talia and her Blood Elf friend try to figure out where a bunch of missing pallies disappeared to. I capture a cultist for interrogation, and after some pestering, he tells us that the pallies are in Deathholm. So are we just gonna leave him here? Well, okay. I get to Deathholm and we set out to save. Wait, why are there so many pallies on this list? Really guys? So many of you? In an area full of elite mobs too? I will save you all the tedium of the quest and just cut to me getting the first Sojourner achievement of the expansion. With that, I am finally able to fly. At least in this zone. To celebrate, I went about collecting the skywriting glyphs, although it wound up taking longer than I expected because the glyphs were really buggy and the buff that's supposed to indicate the direction of the closest one didn't work most of the time, and for some reason, the one in Silvermoon was actually slightly outside the city and didn't load until you're really close to it, so I had to actually look up the location for that one. Okay, next zone. Oh, nice to see that Liadrin has moved into Zul'Jara's place. First quest, encouraging small children to jump off extremely high waterfalls. I guess she's dead now. Second quest. Sure are a lot of murlocs here. Oh hey, it's you. Fuck yeah, love me some baby murlocs. Anyways, easy quest line. Next quest. Instead of helping the murlocs, I kill the murlocs. I also need to collect provisions, one of which is on top of this tall stump. Luckily there's a nearby ledge for me to leap off of and reach it. Running back to town was a bit of an adventure, but nothing I couldn't handle. Next quest, gotta help these trolls with a funeral. I actually really like the design of this narrow valley area. Not really sure why, I just think it's neat. Next quest, helping some peeps with their food problem. The source of the problem was a big voidy crab. Next quest, helping the Raventusk leader save her friend from the Twilight Blade. I enjoyed the run back on this one. Zul'Aman is very pleasant to run through, lots of twisty paths and pretty scenery. Afterwards, I help out some furbolgs with their corruption problem. Furbolg try not to be corrupted challenge, impossible. And then, after that, I helped this random troll with his training, although I don't actually think this was part of the Sojourner achieve. This little girl wants me to collect herbs for her. Lucky for her, I'm a herbalist. While looking for herbs, I found this children's play area, which I thought was pretty cool. I would have really dug something like this when I was a kid. And then I showed this troll the power of dance. These two trolls are pining after the same girl. The guy who got rejected seems to be taking it pretty well though. After finishing up around the village, I head to Zul'Aman, where I help purge the echoes of adventures from years past. It's actually a pretty neat questline. I even got to pretend to be one of the bosses at the end. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently the eagle guy from the original raid was Zul'Jara's dad. And with the end of that questline, I have hit level 90. It's really satisfying hitting the max level by handing in the final quest in a chain. Having cleared out the southern portion of Zul'Aman, I head north and help this young blood elf get revenge for his slain family, as well as teach him a valuable life lesson on not dying like an idiot. While doing all this, I notice a nearby rare and try to find my way up to it. I couldn't quite make it going this way, but eventually figured out by going around the other side of the ridge there's a secret path up. Oh my god, look at all these cappy bloppies! I killed the rare and then finished the quest line. Nearby is another quest giver. This is another pretty straightforward quest that didn't give me much trouble, although I did accidentally jump too far down at one point and had to find my way back up. Next is helping out these ghosts. Again, another pretty straightforward quest. It is kind of funny how the low is just like, you guys can leave at any time, nobody's stopping you, and then they just do that. They just leave. Running for the swamp once more. It's a rather nice swamp once you look past all the skeeters. Charging the altars, nice easy 3-minute quest. I head up to the Witherburg village, where there's this Riven Tusk troll worrying about spooters. Turns out there's actually a bunch of them hanging about, but they all seem to be scared of me. The Valbranch actually stole some relics of Shadra. We take them back, which does include having to do the Misera cavern dungeon, and then we use the Shadra relics to revive her. Aw, she remembers me saving her. After that, I go looking for a child that ran off somewhere. I need to ask another child high up on a pillar and attempt to reach it at first by deer leaping, but the gap is slightly too far, so in the end I resort to the Dark Moon Cannon and Goblin Glide in order to reach him. Ooh, log bridge. I love log bridges. The rest of the questline is pretty easy, so I'm going to skip over it. I'll just say that it is one of those quest lines. After that taste of bittersweet, I move on to the Misera Deeps, where I help out these trolls save their friend. Once again, pretty straightforward quest, not a whole lot of challenge in terms of getting around. The only questline I have left at this point is the one involving the Tortolans. However, before I unlock flying, there's one last task I must do, and that is escorting this baby Kapara to the shrine. I think this is supposed to be some sort of no mount challenge for regular players, but somehow I'm both playing it straight and cheesing it at the same time. With the pup delivered, it's time to finish Zul'Aman. And after helping the Tortolans with their task, I return to the Witherburg village and finish the Sojourner Chief. Once again, I celebrate by taking to the skies and finding all the glyphs. Next up, Harandar. First quest I see as I exit the den is from this kid, so I guess I'm helping him first. I decide I've had enough of this piss yellow sky and down in another inky black potion, and oh my, this is so pretty. The bioluminescent mushrooms themselves look really good, but what I'm really digging is this green triangle rain, which I'm pretty sure is a bug, but a pretty bug nonetheless. The kid wants me to find and help his brother, who needs to become a shellcut before he goes insane. This is so pretty! Even the water is all glowy! After helping them, I pick up some quests in the nearby town of Harathur. The quests themselves are fairly easy, but look at that waterfall! I'm not regretting using the inky black potion in this zone. It's the Cloud Serpent again, and this time I'm close enough to get her name, Al-Sharon. Ooh, new puzzle quest. My experience doing those ice puzzles in the Gen 3 Pokemon games is finally paying off. It's so pretty! I run into these mushroom guys who need help in the ring. Oh yeah, gotta quit my Fun Gal title for this one. For the Fungal Fellowship! Oh, they all ran off. One training arc later and we win the rematch. What a fun little quest. Next quest, this village of mushroom people seems to be dead. It turns out this was a result of a mushroom. My inky black potion runs out, but I decide not to renew because I'll get too sleepy if I quest in the darkness too long. I'm kind of stuck at the midway point between two flight paths, so I just run to the next quest hub. It is quite the trek, but I am enjoying the scenery. There's actually only one quest here and it has to do with potatoes. I like to imagine that somewhere a dev is giggling nonstop about inventing these guys. I take the flight path back to the den and make the long journey to the northeast. The first quest I do in this area isn't particularly notable, however, this quest of the young girl is. She keeps being bullied because she believes in Al-Shara. Little girl, I've seen it. I've seen Al-Shara. Several times, I believe you. This quest actually confirms my suspicion of Aldentra being another version of Alani, as from now on, mobs in the zone can drop sky shards for me, which eventually I'll be able to use to get her as a mount. From that quest, I run into another child who wants me to retrieve important items from their slain mentor. Collecting this stuff is pretty easy, but the follow-up quest wants me to meet her in a cave behind a high-up waterfall. I attempt to scale the waterfall for a while, but as much as I try, I can't quite make it up there, so in the end I have to resort to the cannon. Next quest. I run into some more kids who want to play hide and seek. Very doable from the ground. Then one kid gets snatched by a bird, and I'm worried that the nest will be high up on a cliff somewhere, but luckily, these are ground nesting birds. After that, I run into Gazlo, who's being used as a plushie by this beast. I rescue him, and then he and Arwena go on some kind of date. It's very cute. Next, I head to the northwest and help this guy collect food for the village. My hubris of pulling as many mobs as I can finally catches up to me, and I die my third death. The village also has me help out Hagar tend to Teldrassil's burning roots. It's a nice questline, but really would have been better if they acknowledged my night elven self at any point during it. The first part of the questline is easy enough, but I soon run into the rather massive problem of having to put out some fires on the very high up off the ground roots. I break out the scouting claws once more and fly around to see if there's potentially any way of doing this quest from the ground. It doesn't look good, until... yeah, I might be able to work with that. I return as a deer and quickly realize that, lucky for me, I don't have to be very close to the fires to put them out, and the roots are scalable. I might just be able to do this. Once the last fire was extinguished, I decided to see how high I could go. Turns out pretty high, actually. And then, once satisfied with my height, I goblin glided down to victory and finished up the questline. I will say that after that exercise in pathfinding, the final questline I did to complete Pathfinder was rather anticlimactic. And with that, I did my victory lap of the zone. Time for the last zone, Voidstorm. I start at Locust Point. First thing I do when I get there is down another inky black potion, and holy shit, this looks so cool. First side quest of the zone involves this Voidwalker that breaks free and needs to be stopped before it can consume the power in a nearby cave. I flap my way down and meet up with the Warlock, who asks me to drain the life of some nearby young wildlife. There's actually an option for druids to not do this fatally, but you need to sacrifice a portion of your max HP to do so. This wasn't much of a burden, and I quickly finished the quest. Descending into the cave, it actually has some weird gravity, which is fun. After collecting the energy we need, we confront the Voidwalker and turn him into this little guy. And then it was a matter of actually getting back to the hub to hand in the quest. I quickly learned that these Trigor mobs run extremely quickly, and the worms have a range slow, which when combined with the long winding ravines and high cliffs make me really wish that Bliss updated the Flightmaster whistle to work in modern zones. The next quest involves a scout seeing the voidy ghosts of other missing scouts and wants me to investigate with her. Due to my issues with mobs earlier, I resort to stealthing past most of them, even if it is a bit slower. I find that compared to the other zones, Voidstorm is much more maze-like, as you really need to think about where you're going and how to get there. I find myself constantly checking the map to make sure I didn't run myself into a dead end or accidentally jump off a ridge into an area that would take me a while to get myself out of. Eventually, I find the scout and a Voidwalker who seems to want to help us. After I feed it, it leads us to some scrying stones that in turn lead us towards the missing scouts. My Void Elf friend here seems to think that it's a trap, and that does seem to be the obvious answer. But what if it's a plot twist? What if the Voidwalker was actually trying to be helpful? Never mind. Yep, those sure are some dead scouts. I slay the deceitful Voidwalker, and this time the ridge is higher than the hub, so I can just goblin glide down to it. Ooh, a herb. Go away, Mo-oh. Okay then, thanks I guess. I run over to a nearby ethereal camp to find my next set of quests. The questline is fairly easy, but the second part is half a zone away, so I put that on hold and start some other side quests instead. Usually, I like to do one questline at a time and move from hub to hub. The quests in Voidstorm tend to send you all over the place, and getting around on foot is a massive pain, so I ended up just picking up every quest I saw and doing them in whichever order was most convenient to me at the time. Anyways, in this questline, Bro winds up going crazy and I have to kill him. I continue on my way towards the second half of the ethereal quest, when I notice a nearby flight path I haven't collected yet that also happens to be a quest hub. Pretty much all the flight paths are on top of high points, which means I'm constantly having to run up from valley bottom to mountaintop in order to use them after completing the various scattered quests. Seriously though, this place looks so cool with Inky Black Potion. I get to the area where the ethereal quest chain sent me and realize that I'm too far down in elevation and need to find a way back up. This takes me a while, but I eventually figure out that I need to climb up the opposing ridge and cross a bridge to reach it. The rest of the ethereal questline is nothing special. But man, this giant swirling portal sure does look like it could have been the entrance to some kind of Manaforge raid of the Omega variety, if a certain expansion hadn't been split up into 3. After dealing with the ethereals, I descend back down to the nasty-ass blood swamp I had run through earlier. The questline here is also fairly straightforward, but I just want to give a shout out to the dev team for doing such a good job at designing an area that just screams, you want to avoid this place at all costs unless you want to die from turbo malaria. The next questline is interesting because it features a group of Draenei we hadn't seen before. I have to help them rescue their friends and escape this hellhole of a world, and all the while they barely speak any common. This is definitely one of those questlines I'll have to come back to on my Draenei alt. Oh yeah, and around this time my Inky Black Potion ran out and I decided not to renew it. I head to the Ingress next, where I help the Riftwalker investigate some ancient stone tablets. Turns out this world used to be a regular planet until some madman destroyed everything with a super weapon. After that's done, I goblin glide over to the Stormarian Citadel and do some quests there. Ooh, that's one really dangerous looking orb. Sniping minigame rather fun though. It's finally time to do the quests in Decimus's crib. I grab every quest I see and start by helping out the demon hunters. They open a portal to Argus, where I'm reminded once more why sharding is a thing in newer zones. We learn that Zera wanted Illidan to fight the Void. Illidan didn't seem to care though. And then we return to Voidstorm, where they fly off to some other part of the zone I don't want to travel to just yet. I'll get back to them later. I grabbed the quest from this guy, and I'm going to skip over it because it wasn't challenging from a ground travel perspective. The only thing of note was running to Obscurian Citadel from the Howling Ridge and back, but they aren't very far apart from each other. Just know that it is a cool and touching questline that I recommend doing. What else? I take a sword of Decimus, I help train this little baby kaiju guy, I run across this plain, which is kind of neat to see after all the cliffs and valleys. Me and Decimus go on some kind of date, maybe. I run into this paladin who's had her boyfriend stolen by a Dominar, and I would have loved to help her at the moment, but she went up onto Slayer's Rise, and I wanted to go there later, so instead I took the long trek back to Howling Ridge. Finish Decimus's friendship experiment. Next, I travel to the Demon Hunters to continue their quest. After we finish up here, I actually just hearth and take the portal in Silvermoon back to Howling Ridge, because it was faster than just running back. At this point, all the quests I have left are at Slayer's Rise, so I take the flight path there and then flap my way down to the Paladin, who needed help earlier. Slayer's Rise isn't that hard to travel across since it is used as a map for a battleground, which mostly doesn't allow flying, so it has to be easily traversable. Okay girl, I know he's your true love and all that, but given that he's a Holoful Arthai, you've only known him for, what, 2 years, max? One thing I'm curious about is how Shadowcraft interacts with domination magic. I don't think they're really the same, but would the Crown of Wills make people resistant to it, like it did with domination? Or given that death-aligned beings seem to be immune, or at the very least resistant to void insanity aura, I wonder if beings that are infected with domination magic would be immune to Shadowgraft. Like, could you throw Shadowgraft to Anduin, he'd be all like, nah, I've done this orc already, and it would just bounce off? So many questions. Anyways, these two are dead. Ripperoni. Say hi to Lithraxian for me in the Light Realm. At least that's where I assume you're going, because your ghosts are, like, yellow. Since it's nearby, I jump down the cliff and progress the Demon Hunter questline. Leona gets herself sucked into the void, and we need to ask Umbric to help save her. This one beacon was a bit high up, but no problem for me to reach. The final part of the quest wants me to help them kill a guy. I goblin guy down to the arena and stealth for the mobs, and help them finish him off. I think she's supposed to eat him here, but it bugged out, and they just stood around for a while until it finally progressed, and she got her voidy demon form. And since my hearth was on cooldown and I completely forgot about the Arcantina key, I ran all the way back. Okay, only a few more questlines to do. I head back to Slayer's Rise and pick up the quest from this lady who's interested in a potential curse, and from this guy who seems to be having shade problems, but I'll help him later. A Dominar named Vidius has recruited the Alliance and wants me to help fight against his foe, Ziadin, who has recruited the Horde. I start by collecting Shadowgraft, which Vidius greatly disapproves of because he is a fighting purist, but then I get sidetracked by the Cursed Lady. Oh, this is fun. Can I have this for my house? We run into this ethereal who has this entity following them. While buying time for them, I come across this arcane pillar that lets me float high into the sky. I don't really see use for it at the moment, but maybe there will be later. The ethereal tricks me into becoming the target of the entity, and we use the opportunity to capture it. My void elf friend here insists that we killed the ethereal for tricking us, but really, I'm not that mad about it. I would have been fine with sparing her, but if you insist, and I guess she is Shadowguard. I go back to helping Vidius, and it turns out there's a third Dominar interfering with their fight. Now where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, I guess the subtext is just text. I head to Voidscar Arena and discover that the place I need to reach is high up and there are no stairs. However, I spot one of those arcane fly pillars and use that to get to the higher level. I actually need to get to an even higher platform and ponder if the next floaty arcane pillar is close enough to reach. But then I realize that these voidy balls are actually grappling points and I could have used them all along. So I guess that's that problem solved. A bit of killing later and that's that questline done. Only one left. The guy with the shade problem isn't that far away, and nice easy short quest. And with that, the final Sojourner and Loremaster achieve is complete. As usual, I celebrate by taking to the skies and collecting glyphs. And while experimenting with these black hole things, I found out the hard way that not only is Voidstorm dangerous on the ground, but in the air as well. Final thoughts. Overall, I had a good time. I liked the campaign and the Sojourner quests. There were only a handful of quests that required some sort of additional aid in order to complete without a flying mount, but no quests that hard required flying. I'd say like 99% of quests can be completed without flying, but that number will likely be more like 95% if you want to try it on a class that isn't Druid or Demon Hunter. If I were to rate the zones, and to be clear, this rating is on how much I like to navigate it, not on looks or vibes or anything like that, I would say I liked Zul'Aman the most. It had a healthy mix of roads, bridges, and interesting terrain to navigate. I liked Harandar second best because it had some fun areas with lots of verticality and various ramps and platforms that required me to think a bit about where I had to go, but it was otherwise very flat between these areas. Third is Eversong. It's just fine. It's just an upscaled version of a ground-only zone that came out 20 years ago, so it's basically designed to be a ground zone that just happens to let you fly now. I did really like Silvermoon though, and finding all the platforms you get to with the translocation orbs. Lastly is Voidstorm. My inner masochist actually really liked Voidstorm, and it was definitely more challenging compared to the others. But other people I've talked to who also did this challenge often quit at Voidstorm, and honestly I can't blame them. It's just an extremely hostile zone, and I think I would have had a lot less of a good time if I was playing any other class than Druid. Stealth and being able to shapeshift out of snares really came in handy. But aside from running, what about flying? The expansion has been out for about a month now, and ever since unlocking flying for myself, I have been doing so. While I've yet to actually level and ult through the zones, I've been doing open world content, gathering, and achievement hunting, which has had me flying around each zone a lot. I'd say my favorite zone to fly around in is once again Zul'Aman. It's got some verticality to it, and giant trees to slalom through, like Azure Span, and interesting terrain like the Mazera area, as well as various chasms and ravines around the zone, which I really like. Most importantly, there always seems to be a reason to interact with these features. Whether through herbing, rare farming, or doing world quests, I always found myself flying closer to the ground when compared to the other zones. I'd say the only downside to it is I have to fly for a minute or two from Silvermoon to reach it, which sounds very first world problem-y, but the other zones have me spoiled with portals. Also the gathering. Ugh. What would you call that? That affix? The thing that the herbs and orbs have that make them spawn little ads? Yeah, that. I hate that. I know Blizz buffed the drop rate on the herb guys, but it still doesn't feel worth it to actually fight them over just flying away to the next node. At least the herb ones are now hostile to the person who initially spawned them, so I can now herb and flee guilt-free. My second favorite zone to fly around in is once again Harandar. The main hub has a cave you can mount and fly around in, which is something I've wanted for ages. One of my main complaints about the War Within was that despite taking place largely underground, it didn't really feel like it. The cave zones were way too open. We really need more caves like this that are open enough to fly around in, but not open enough to not feel like caves. The various roots and giant mushrooms are fun to fly around and even have herbs on them. The main downside being that unless you already know exactly where each of the herbs spawn, it can take some ascending and descending and circling before you actually find them. Also, unlike Zul'Aman, I'm finding I'm not drawn towards the ground nearly as much, which just causes me to fly over everything, unless I'm actively herbing. Voidstorm is kind of interesting with its ravines, but the way the zone is set up, you just kind of end up flying over everything anyways, so it winds up being just like a big flat zone. There isn't really anything to draw you down into the canyons unless you are hunting rares. Even the gathering nodes tend to have too many mobs around them, so gathering is just a pain in the zone. The most interesting feature is the Hungering Presence, which triggers when you leave the zone's mainland or fly too high, and it spawns a mob that chases you and will one-shot you if it catches you. But it does have to catch you first. And well, this is probably going to be an unpopular take, but I actually think the height trigger for this should have been lower, like a lot lower, like fly over a ridge at your own risk lower. Force us to fly through the actual ravines lower. Honestly, for the sake of the fanbase, it's probably a good thing I don't work at Blizzard. Eversong. Basic zone, very flat, lots of trees. The tree branches don't seem to catch you as much as the War Within trees though, so that's nice. I also like the big sun crown trees, but there isn't really any reason to fly through their branches. I like Silvermoon though, good city, much less boring than Dornigal. Overall, I like the zones. I think they were an improvement from the War Within, but not quite on DragonNoFlight's level. One thing that I've noticed the absence of in Midnight are the skywriting races. I always like doing those as world quests, and they were a great way to highlight features of a zone, and I hope we get them back at some point. And that's the video. Thanks for watching. Consider doing your own ground-only challenge. I've seen other people consider it, but then not do it because they feel like they'll get left behind. But if this is you, don't feel the need to do it right at the start of an expansion like me. The first time I did the challenge like this was actually near the end of an expansion. If you want to see how that went out, check out my DragonNoFlight video. Now that this video is done, I can finally go back to playing the game. As if I haven't been procrastinating making this video by playing the game already. Goodbye!